Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this rectangular box granny blanket. I was going to call it a square, but it's a rectangle, but you know what I mean. Now this is a modern sort of take on the granny stitch. It's got an alternate row here. So if you look, I have done this tutorial on a square and a hexagon before. The square is called rubies if you want to have a look at that. The hexagon is called emeralds, and it was done with quite bright, vibrant colours. And this alternate row here was done with a darker yarn, and it really sets off the colour scheme. But I wanted to make this in lovely pastel shades for a baby blanket, so my alternate rows are white. Now this yarn has a glitz to it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you. Oh, there it is. But you can see there is a glitz in this yarn. It's very pretty. And I've got a mint green, a pink, a blue and a lilac and the white. I've got 2 balls of the white because I'm going to do an edging and I wanted to make sure I'd got enough, but I've got 100-gram scheme of all of my other colours, and I'm using a 4.5mm crochet hook because I wanted it to be nice and light and drapey for the spring and summer. This blanket is for a pram or stroller, but you can make it in any size that you wish. Just make sure you've got enough yarn for that project. And then also you can make it with a 4-weight yarn if you wanted to. Just make sure you use the corresponding crochet hook. In the UK we call that Aran. But I'll show you this yarn that I'm using. I won't show you each ball because you've seen the colours. It's just called Baby Sparkle. It's 100-gram double knitting yarn. It's very inexpensive, but it's lovely and soft. It's 95% acrylic and 5% metallic, and it's got a total length of 300 meters approximately. So it does have a machine washable instruction as well. But if you can't get this yarn, then you can use any equivalent yarn, 3-weight, DK weight. Now this one, it's lovely and soft, it's very inexpensive, and I just love the shimmer. So how do we start? We're going to start this with a slip knot. I'm just going to pause the video while I clear all these bits and pieces out the way, and I'll come straight back to Okay, so we're going to start off with a slip knot. You can make that in any way that you normally do. I was taught to make a circle, go around the back and put the yarn through it and just pull it, and you get yourself a nice little slip knot. And we're going to chain up 24. So for the beginner, I will just show you quickly how to do a chain. You yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. So that's yarn over and pull through the loop, and that's as simple as that. Now that is just 4 for me, and they need a total of 24, so I'm going to pause the video and I will meet up with you once I've done my 24. Okay, so I've now got my chain, and how we're going to do this is by making a UK treble crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. Now this loop doesn't count, that's on the hook. There's our 1st, 2nd, and this is our 3rd. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to go through 2 loops, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we now have 3 on our hook. We'll yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. And we're going to do 2 more in that same chain, exactly the same as before, and another one. So to be our 4th one, because these 2 chain that we started with count as our 1st stitch. So there we are, that's our last stitch. And so if you look at them, we've got 3 and our 2 chain. So this is now our side. I'm going to chain 2, and because this is our corner, we're going to go into the very next stitch, and we're going to do 4 in that chain as well. So again, going through the 2 loops and just do another 4 in that stitch. Don't worry if it makes those stitches a little baggy, that's fine. So now we have made a corner. This is our side and we're going along this edge. So I'm going to chain loosely 2 and I'm going to count 4 stitches. We're going to go in the 4th one. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3 and into our 4th stitch, and we're going to do another cluster of 4. So we're going through the 2 loops again and we're going to do 4 more, and that's what we're going to do all the way along this chain. We're going to chain up, once we've done our 4, we're going to chain up 2, not tightly but loosely, and then we're going to count 4 and go into the next stitch and do another 4, and we're going to do that all the way along until we get to the last couple of stitches. So I'm going to finish this one and then I shall pause the video. I need to pull out a bit of yarn, sorry. So that's how it looks. We've got our corner and we've got our sides forming. So I'm going to pause the video and I will come back to you once I've got to the very end. Now I've made it all the way to the end and you will see that I have 1 stitch left. And just like we had at this end, I'm going to chain 2 and then I'm going to do another cluster of 4 in that very last stitch. I'm just going to pause the video one moment because I'm getting a phone call. Sorry about that, I got a call. And the stupid thing was my phone was on silent, but it managed to come through my tablet and it was actually quite important. So as I said, right, there's our last cluster of our 4 and we're making the opposite end. So I've done my 2 chain and I'm going to go in my last stitch through my 2 loops and I'm going to do my last 4. And I'm going to work over that end when I go back round the other side. This time we do need 4. The other end we only had 3 because we had the 2 chain. So now I've made my other corner. I'm going to do 2 chain just like we have here, and I'm going to go in the same stitch for this cluster here. So that's the next one. We've been in this one, we're going to go back into that one. It is a long stitch and it will make a gap, but that's fine. So I'm going to just make my cluster of 4 in this one, just as I had on the other side. We're now working back the other way along our chain. And we're going to go in each one of our shells that we've already been into. It's nice and easy to see where to go on this side. Move that tail out of the way. And I've got my chain. I'm going to go into this stitch and do my 4. Don't worry about the baggy stitch. It does pull itself back. My 2 chain. Pull out some yarn and into this stitch here. If it helps, just hold on to that stitch there with your finger and it won't curl it around, and you'll be able to see. Again, just hold on to that if you have to, so stop it from curling round. As long as you don't end up with very baggy stitches. Just got to pull out some yarn. It's pulling on something. There we are. And that's 1. Finish off our 4. Two chain. And we're back here. And what we've got to do now is slip stitch into the top. No, we've got to go into this one, sorry. What am I talking about? There we are, nearly missed one. So we're going to go into our last one. Didn't think it looked right. So, oops, didn't finish it. So we've done our 4, 2 chain, that's better. And now we're going to slip stitch into the top of our 2 chain. So if you can't see it too easily because it's a little bit awkward to see, you just count 1, 2, 3, and there is the top. And we'll slip stitch into there. That's finished off our row. Now we're going to end that colour, so I'm just going to cut it off. If you want to do your joins however you normally do, that's fine. So now we've got something that looks like this, and we're going to join our white. So I'm just going to clear this out the way, bear with me once. Okay, so now our tail's over here, so I'm going to join my yarn over in this corner. I don't really want to work over more than one tail at a time. Now, you can join however you want, but I've found this is the easiest way for me. So I know there are 2 loops on my hook, but just make your join however you want. If you want to tie it on, that's perfectly fine. Just whichever join that you're happy with. I'll tie it on for this time, just to show you what we do. So I'm going to pull up my loop and do a chain. So now I'm ready to go. And what I'm going to do is in this stitch here, I'm going to insert my hook and pull up a loop, insert and pull through both. So I've made a UK double crochet, that's a US single. I'm going to chain 2, and now I'm going to do that again in the same stitch. So that's into the gap and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So that is going to be our corner. Now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going nice and loosely. If you chain tightly, you'll need 3, but I'm going to go into this gap here and do another UK double, US single. Chain 2 and go along to the next one. And don't worry that if it pulls a little tight, you want that to pull these into a square so they don't fan out. So chain 2, not tight but not too baggy, and do that all the way along. Another 2, and we're going in every gap and just pulling them together. I've done it with 3, but I wasn't happy with the result. Now I'm back at the corner, so I've done 1, 2 chain, and we're going in again. We can get rid of those at the next round, so that's fine. So now we have to bridge this gap. So we're going to do 2 chain and go over here to our next one. If you wanted to do 3 chain there to get you round, that's fine. But we're just doing the same thing again because it's a corner. UK double, US single, chain 2, and into that corner again. So now we've made 2 little loops at each corner. That's what we're looking for, and a big gap in between. So we're going to chain 2 loosely and go into every gap again and do our UK double, US single until we get back along the other side. And that's what it's going to look like. Don't worry if it's pulled it slightly tight. We want it to pull it together a little bit, because otherwise it's too loose. Okay, so now we're back at the corner. So we've done 1, 2 chain, go back in, do it again. Now because this is quite a distance, we will do our 3, and now we're going to just slip stitch into our first, because there's our corner. We've got our first stitch, 2 chain, and our second. So we're just going to slip stitch into here. And we're going to end off. There we are. So now our next round is going to kind of pull that out a little bit more. So I'm going to go with blue. I might as well use the blue, it's nice and handy. So we're going to join it at the opposite end to where we've just ended off. So I've ended there, and so I'm going to join it at this corner. So here is my corner, there's my 2 stitches, and this is the in-between part. So just join that, and I normally join, because I'm going to do treble crochets, I will join it with a loop, and my first chain will be through both the tail as well as the working yarn, and then my next stitch, my next chain will just pull up. So now that will count as my first stitch. Now our corners are slightly different to the rest. For our corner, we're going to do the traditional granny square corner of 3, 2 chain and 3, just like that. Oops, sorry about that. Only want to think, because I've had a few days off, that I was a beginner. This is ridiculous. So there we are. We're going to carry on. So there's our 3. Got 2 chain counts as 1. There's our 2. 2 chain, and I'm working over that tail as much as I can. So there's my 3rd. Now this is our first stitch. I'm not going to do any chain now. Just going to go and do 4 UK trebles, US double crochets into my first gap. That's as the corner, and as you can see, it pulls it nicely. I'm going to continue working over the tail. If it doesn't work out, I can always fish it out and sew it in. But the more you can work over, the better. And you can see it's pulling it normally, so there's stops it from being quite so puckered. And we're going to carry on exactly the same way with it. Just if I'm going too fast, of course, just pause the video and catch up with me. It's only that first row that I find does pull a little tight and pucker that way. The rest of them, because they've been pulled out, they're all fine. So now we're back at the corner. And so in our first corner, we're going to do what we did at the other end. 3 treble crochets, 2 chain. If I'm going too fast, then just pause the video and catch up with me. And another 3 for our corner. And then, of course, we've got our side. So we're going to do our side here. Okay, and then we're back at the corner here, and I'm going to work over the tail. Whoops. So I'm doing 3. Pull out some yarn. Oh. Pull it on the floor at the same time. Oh my goodness, I do apologise. I'd start again if I hadn't gone so far. Oh dear. Right, I will try better. I do apologise for that. Okay, this what I'm using is a gimbal. It's meant to stabilise. I don't think even it can stabilise against me today. So there we are, 2 chain. The rest of our corner working over the tail. And now we're going to go along the straight again, and I'm going to work over these tails as much as I can, because it's so much better to work over what you can and just sew in the rest. And this is exactly the same along this edge as before. It's pulling it out nicely, and once we get round you'll see that it's no longer puckering. That's it. I'm not going to work over that tail anymore. I'll just sew them in, sew the edges in. Okay, so we carry on in all of our spaces, going through those white chains, almost back. Oops, went through the wrong part. Almost there. Last one along this edge. Dropped it. And now we're back at the corner again. Again, no chain, but we're going to go in between our stitches. Two chain for the corner. And then into our edge. And we've made it all the way back. So now we're going to slip stitch into our top chain, and if you can't see where that is, you just count back, but it's easy to spot. So we're just going to slip stitch into there and end off our colour. And there we go, it's pulled it out. You can see it's not puckered or anything anymore, and we're going to just go ahead and attach the white and do exactly the same thing with the white as we did along that row. Just bear with me while I clear the blue away. Okay, so I'm going to attach at the opposite end. I always do that, and I'm going to go into the corner and attach my white, and I'll do it the same way as before for you, just by making a knot there and insert my hook and pull up a loop and do my first chain. So now I'm joined, and I'm going to do the corner in exactly the same way. So I'm going to make a UK double or US single. If you pull that tightly, it will just get rid of that little bump, and two chain and go back in and do another one. So that's made our corner. No, that's too tight. Get a bit tangled. Come out of there. That's the way I'm holding it, I think. So two chain, nice and loose, not baggy, not ridiculously baggy. And then we're going to go in between our stitches, our groups of 4, and do a UK double or US single. Again, two chain and go into this one. As you can see, two chain is sufficient. It's just that first row makes it look as if it's pulling it a little tight, but that's, we just need, if you do too many, then that first row splays out like this, which doesn't, it does a little bit still splay out, but I think we could probably get away with maybe two chain in between, but sometimes it did pull it just a little bit too tight. I found it worked a little better with the 3 in between. And we just keep going all the way around, just as before. Once we get to the corner, which we are now, we're going to make our corners by 1, 2 chain, and another one in the same space. And we'll work in that little ring there for our corner. And now the sides have grown. That's the corners, and we 1, 2, go into that side, move that out of the way, and make our other corner. If you wanted to try doing 4, 2 and maybe 1 chain and 4, then by all means do, but I found it looked nicer with the 3. It's just a few too many stitches if you try and do 4 on each side. We go all the way along this edge, and as before, if it starts to pull a little bit, don't worry, it soon pulls back out again. And now we're in the corner. Now the last 2 chain, and then we slip stitch into our first part of the corner, and again end off that colour, the white, and we're going to join, and it pulls a little bit and it does sometimes look like it's going in at the sides, but you just give it a little zhuzh, it's a technical term, and it's all fine. So now we're going to join the next colour, which I'm going to do pink. And then once I've shown you this round, I think that'll be it. You won't really need to show you any more rounds until you're kind of completed. So I'm going to insert my hook in between that last colour into that corner gap there. And I'm going to bring out my new colour. And again, I'm going to work over both the tail and my working yarn for my first stitch, drop the tail and finish off my 2 chain with the normal working yarn, and then I'm going to complete my corner, which is 2 more UK trebles, US doubles, 2 chain and 3 more in the corner. Just pull that towel out of the way because it's starting to get in the way. So there's our corner. Now we just carry on. I'm going to work over the tail and do 4 in the next gap, just as before. So it looks kind of difficult. I think the most difficult part is the initial rows, that the going the very first, these first rows here, that and working over tails. But there would be an awful lot of sewing if you didn't try and work over some of these tails. It's fine if you don't mind sewing, and I think at the moment, I don't know when you watch this, but at the precise moment that this is filmed, we're all on lockdown. We have plenty of time to sit and sew in tails. So there we are. I'm not going to work over that one anymore. I'm going to sew it back through itself and just carry on doing my little clusters of 4 all the way. Trying though carefully, it's ever so easy to grab that bottom row. My hook does that quite often because it is just running alongside it. But yeah, it's quite straightforward, nice and effective looking, and it's nice to do a rectangle rather than just a square or make squares and sew them together. But this does look nice if you use I'd say adult yarn, not baby yarn, but if you make it in just experiment with colours, because if you check out my rubies and my emeralds, that's the rubies is the square and the emeralds the hexagon, but you can see just how lovely it looks when you're using colours and a dark contrasting colour with it. So here we are at the corner, going to do my corner that we're all used to now. But if you do make it for a different reason, then obviously you just need to make sure that you're going to have enough yarn to get that done. So now the sides have grown and we've got 3 lots of 4 along the side. It grows fairly quickly in that respect. With a normal traditional granny square it would have grown just 1, but now as you can see we only had 1 in this round, but we've got 3 along here now. And so it does grow fairly fast. Last lot. I'm going to start working over my tail, going into that centre. See that centre piece of the corner? I don't like my corner chains being too big. But of course the ones along the side, when we're doing the white row, we do need to make them wide enough to fit. Do not go over my yarn though. Come back. There we are. Hold those up. Still probably need to secure them at the very ends, but I can work over a little to save me some time. And so I won't work over them anymore, sew them back on themselves. There we go, and see it's growing. I'll pull out some yarn. Just get to the end of this round and you'll completely know exactly what you're doing. So I will pause it then and meet up with you when it comes to the border, unless you want to make your own preferred border, which is fine. And now back at the corner again. So now the only places that you will have chain on this round is at the corners themselves. Okay, so now we're going back to ours 4s in the sides. That's one I didn't really work over, did I? Never mind. I can get it a little bit in a minute. There we go. So, last 4. If that doesn't look right, you can just undo that, sew that one in anyway. We all need a little, we have some that we have to sew in, but that one would look out of place, so I'm going to drop it and just do my last 4 without it. Just need to pull out a smidge of yarn and then slip stitch into the top of my chain. and end off this pink colour. If I can find my end. And there we are. That's what it looks like. So we'll just now carry on with a white row and then do the mint green, and then I will alternate those colours again. So the mauve, which is a little bit more of a mauve colour than it's looking on there, but it's a very sunny day, so I'm having some colour issues, but you can just about see the glitz then. That's quite sparkly. So yes, then the next colour will be, I'll do my white, then I'll do the green, and then I'll start again just with the mauve, the white, the blue, the white, the pink, the white, the green, the white, and just keep going and going until we reach the size of our blanket. And then for those of you who want to meet up with me at the end of this video, and I'll show you how I do my border, or you can put on whichever border that you wish. So just going to pause the video, and I'll catch up with you once your blanket is the size you want. Welcome back, and here I am. I've done all of my rows of my blanket that I wanted to, and I'm just going to sort out the border. Now I've finished on a white row because I thought that I might do a complete round in white of somehow. So I'm going to join at the corner and attach my yarn by going over my tail and my working yarn. So what I've decided I might do is a row of half treble crochets. So that's yarn over into the corner, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now I've got 4, but you would have 3 loops on the hook, and yarn over and go through all 3. So that'll show you again. That's yarn over into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. So that's 3, apart from the first one, which was going over my, which had my working yarn and my tail. So I'm going to do 3 stitches in the corner. So this is a half treble in the UK, half double in the US. So I'm just going to do my third one. Now I'm going to carry on and just go into every one of these. I'm going to do 4. And so keep in line with my blanket as I've been making it. I'm not going to go into those ones along here, just going to go straight in and do 4 in all of the stitches along the side. So that's what it will look like. So I'm going to do that all the way around. When I get to the corner, I shall do 3, just as I did in my first corner to start with, and I'm working over my tail. It's a bit of a funny tail. Never mind. Just thought it'd be nice to have that end off with that part there, rather than just go into, I have to pull some yarn, do bear with me a second, rather than just go straight into the stitches. I thought it'd be nice to have the last little one of those, because it does kind of pull that up, and if you didn't have it, it would be flat on the top. If I go too fast for you, then obviously just pause the video, but I'm going to pause it soon anyway and meet you at the end. I'll just show you how to keep going. Whoops. It does help if you actually complete your stitch. The angle that I'm working at. So that's just 4 in each of our spaces all the way along. So I'm going to pause the video then, and I will see you when I get to my first corner. I've made it all the way along and I'm back at the corner again. So here we are, there's the space to go in. I'm going to just do 3 in the corner. And then once I've done my 3, I'm just going to go straight along this edge and go back to my 4. And there we are, made the corner. So I'm going to carry on now, go all the way around the other corners, and I will meet up with you when I get back to the start and show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, I'm more or less back. Just got my last, whoops, I've gone into the bottom stitch. Have to be really careful of that, they do stick up a little bit. Oops. Back to being in a funny angle. And my last one, I've gone into the wrong bit, no, just check it's all okay. So now I've made it all the way around, all I have to do is to slip stitch into the first stitch. And now I was going to do several rows, but I really like the way it looks because it kind of keeps into its groups of 4, and I think if I did another row then it's just going to band it, so I quite like it as it is. So I'm going to end there, but if you wanted to, if you didn't like just the short border, you could do a few more rows of this stitch just to make a nice wide border. And I might as well just put a picot edge on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this tutorial here, and I'm going to use the swatch that I just made to practice the border and do a border tutorial. So I'm going to finish this one right now. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and you'll be informed when that new video is up. And if you could just like and share this video as well, I'd appreciate it. So thanks very much for watching. Until the next one, bye bye for now. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do a simple little picot edge which you can use around any blanket or any project. I've already simulated a border by doing 2 rows of a UK half treble, which is a US half double, and so I'm only going to show you how to do the picot edge. This is assuming that you already know how to make your border. Now you can do this with the half treble, half double, or you can do it with a UK double crochet, which in the US is a single crochet. So before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel, the little buttons over here, and hit that notification bell. You'll be informed when there are new videos, and there are a lot coming your way at the moment, and I have a lot of tutorials already listed, including the blanket for this rectangular baby box granny rectangular blanket. I didn't really say that very well. It's a bit much to get your mouth around, the rectangular box baby blanket, too many B's. So that tutorial was already up, and I finished it with a quite simple little border, and I left it there because I quite liked it, but I did say I would do a separate tutorial to show how to do the picot edge. Now I've used a DK weight yarn, which is a 3 weight in the US, and it's got a really lovely little baby kind of glitz to it. I'm not sure if it's going to pick up too easily in this light. It's very sunny today, but it is a really pretty yarn. And I've used a 4.5mm crochet hook. Now you could use smaller with a DK. if you wanted it to be a little bit more compact, but I wanted this to be quite airy and drapey, especially as it's now officially spring and UK summertime is beginning. So I wanted it to be nice and light. So all of these yarns are very cheap. I got them from a store in the UK called B&M, but you can use whichever yarn you wish. You don't have to use a 3-weight at all. If you wanted to use a 4-weight, which in the UK is called Aran, then you can. Just make sure you use a corresponding size crochet hook. Likewise, if you wanted this to be a little bit more compact and chunky feeling, just drop down from a 4.5 to maybe a 375 or a 4. I'm not sure what the letters of those are in the US, but that's just I'm using a 4.5 millimeter. I'm sure you can find that. So I'm going to show you now how to make this picot edge, which is quite simple, and I'm going to zoom in and show you how to do that. So imagine that you have done your little sort of border strip and you're ready to go. So now we're going to chain 3. So that's yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So I have 3 chain on already, and I'm going to go into the very first one closest to the work. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. So now I have 2 on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those. Now, because it's a corner, I'm just going to go into the very next stitch and do a slip stitch. And now I'm going to do 3 chain, and I'm going along my straight edge. So I've done my 3 chain. I'm going into my first stitch. Because I'm zoomed, it's very difficult to stay in the centre. And I do apologise if I move. So now I have my 2, yarn over, pull through both. Now I've got this little picot that's just floating there. So I'm in this stitch here. You can see, just pull it up and you can see it. I'm going to skip this next one and I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So I'm going to insert, pull through and pull through. So I've slip stitched into that stitch there. And let me just adjust this if I can, so that I'm more centre. Okay, so I'm going to show you again. That's 3 chain, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going into the very first one closest to the work, insert my hook, yarn over and pull through. So I have 2 on my hook, yarn over, pull through both. Now it's my little picot is just floating there. So I'm going to skip this stitch and slip this stitch. So I'm going to insert into the stitch through the 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both that and the stitch on my hook. So that I have made another one. So that's 3 altogether. So I'm going to carry on 1, 2, 3 into the first one closest to the work, yarn over and pull up. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those. Skip 1, slip 1. And each time I do, I pull it a little tighter so that cinches down a little bit. So 1, 2, 3 into the stitch closest to the hook, make my picot, skip this one, I'm in this stitch, look, you can see, skip this one and slip this one. And while I do, I just pull it so it cinches down a little bit. Not too tight, just enough. 1, 2, 3. Need to pull out some yarn. Into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up. Yarn over through 2. I'm in this one, skip this one and slip this one. And cinch it down. Do a few more along this side. Now you can see the stitch that we're in, skip this one and slip into this one. Okay, so if I just pause there a second and show you what they look like. So as I didn't skip a stitch, it makes it nice and close around the corner. So otherwise it would have been a bit more separated, which around the corner you don't really want that. So there we are, that's what it looks like. It's a nice little picot edge. If I get closer, you can see how it looks close up. So I'm just going to continue working along this side, doing my 3 chain and making my picot and skipping my next stitch and slipping into my next one, cinching it down as I go. So I'm going to carry on all the way into the corner, and I'll pause the video for now and I'll pick up with you again when I get to the corner. Now I've made it all the way along, and so I'm here, and the next step is the corner. So I'm going to still, at this moment, because I'm not quite there, skip one and slip one. So here I am, now I'm back at the corner. So I'm going to make my picot as usual, and instead of slipping one, I'm going to go into this next stitch, and I'm going to make another picot. And now I'm going to skip one and slip one, and so I'm going along my edge. So I'll do a few more and then we'll look at the corner, see how that looks. If at any point I go too fast or go ahead of you, then just pause the video and catch up with me. I do try to slow down as much as I can, but there is a tendency to race ahead when I need to get past something. Skip one and slip one. Okay, so we're now round. So let's have a look how the corner looks. There we go. It goes nicely and evenly all around the corner. So when you get to the very first stitch for the corner, don't skip one, just slip one into the next and then start doing your skip one. So I think the corners look much nicer that way. You can still do the skip one, but it does look a little bit more spaced out than it would. So I'm just going to carry on as the next corner is nice and close. Sorry if you can hear music. That is, believe it or not, is a car going past the house very slowly, and I wouldn't mind, but all of our windows are closed and the car windows are closed. So how loud must that be in that car? Skip one and slip one. Just need to pull out some yarn. Just pause the video a second. Sorry about that, my yarn was caught, so I just needed to free it. So I'm going to carry on to the next corner and just show you again at the corner. Again, if I go too fast, just pause the video. This is perfect when you need a little simple but pretty edge to your work. So I'm coming up to my corner, and this one, it will be a normal skip one and slip one. But now I'm at the corner. You see that? The very next stitch is the corner. So I'm going to do my picot. And I'm going into the very next stitch. And now I'm going to make another picot. And I'm now on the straight piece, so I'm going to resume skipping one and slipping into the next stitch. I don't think anyone else does that. Most people just continue round skipping. But I think it looks better if you go into that corner. without making too much of a gap. I'll just show you what that one looks like. See, there we are. There's our corners, and I think they do look a little bit nicer when they're sort of close together and not too spaced out around the corner. So I'm now going to carry on going all the way along this straight edge and doing the same thing in this corner, and I'll pick up again with you when I get back to the start. If you need to look at the corner again, then you can always just rewind a little bit, but I won't show you the next corner as I have done this one or two now. So I shall just meet up with you when we get back to the start. I've almost made it round, excuse me. And so I pick up with you again. Slip one. I was hoping that when I got to the end, it was not going to work out with numbers wise, so I could show you what to do if you didn't have enough space. You could either, if you didn't have the correct amount of stitches, which I do, you could just go into the next one just as you did around the corner, or you could maybe see how it looks if you extended one. But I prefer going in the next one rather than extending one. But this one works out just perfectly. So I now slip stitch into my last stitch, and this is where I would end off. So I just cut my yarn, and now just I'm going to just do another chain and pull it through, and I usually pull it down out the way, and so that's what I would do. Just now sew that in so that you can't see it. And this is how, I'm going to zoom out now. This is how it looks. It's quite pretty, little picot edge all the way around the blanket. So I really like the picot edge. I've used it a lot in my time of crochet. It's nice and pretty and finish things off without too much fuss. So that's the picot edge. So thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, bye-bye for now. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. It's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this Lacy baby blanket. So I recently made a scarf with this stitch, and it's slightly different for the blanket, only slightly. But I wanted to make a blanket that was a little bit lacy because I have never done one. I've always done really tight stitches, apart from the willow square, which had a few holes. But this is a stitch that my mum taught me many years ago, but I've adapted it and made it a little bit more modern with these posts because I like the way it kind of makes a chevron out of this lap with the spaces. And I really liked it for the scarf, and my sister asked me to make a baby blanket, so I thought, well, I'll make one out of this stitch and see what it looks like. So because it's a lacier pattern, I always like to do a plainer type border. And I've finished this blanket all but sewing in the very one end. That's the only end that I'm left with. So this is a blanket. Let me show you the yarn that I've used. I used this pastel baby yarn, and this is just an inexpensive yarn that I bought in a shop called B&M in the UK, and it's called Little Dreams. It's upside down. Always is if I've got it, you know. It wouldn't be me if I didn't have it upside down. Little Dreams, and it's two-tone baby knitting yarn, which is that kind of marble effect where there's each strand has two tones to it. But this has some really lovely pastel shades. I've used it before in a blanket called Baby Bubbles, which I think I made a long time ago. There is a tutorial for it. But this is machine washable, and it's a DK weight. Now, for those of you who've seen my scarf tutorial, I made that with yarn that was a little bit thinner, and I used a 4.5mm crochet hook. Some DK weight yarn comes up a lot thinner than others for some strange reason, but for this one I wanted it a bit more bold and the actual shells to look a little bit more pronounced. So I've used a 5mm hook, which I don't normally use for DK unless it's really thick. You'll also need a darning needle. There are not many ends, thankfully. And as well as a darning needle, pair of scissors, the usual stuff. So I've, for that white trim, just used this Women's Institute DK. I thought it looked like a really good even size match, and it's just white, so that's what I've used to edge. It's lovely and soft. So that's the only kind of contrast that I use. The white in the blanket itself was actually in this skein, so all of these colours were in there, and as I thought white was there, it would make a nice kind of addition to the border. I also do a seamless border. I'll show you how to do that when I get round to it. So I'm not going to make the whole blanket again for the tutorial. I'll make a swatch, but I will show you exactly how to convert that into a blanket this size, or bigger or smaller, or a wrap, because it would also make a really nice lightweight wrap to put around your shoulders, and that is ever so easy. I will tell you everything you need to know in a moment. I'm just going to pause it now, clear all this away, and so we can get started. But if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there are new videos. So just bear with me while I get ready. Okay, so let's get started. Now for this blanket, I made 114 stitches plus 2 for the chain. So that was obviously 116. So it works up as a multiple of 6 plus 2. So as long as you've done a multiple of 6, it doesn't matter what size blanket you make, or wrap, as I said before, as long as you have a multiple of 6 plus the 2. So for this purpose, I'm just going to do a small swatch of 36 plus the 2. So you need to make a slip knot, and you can do that however you have been taught to do your slip knot. When I was young, I was taught to make a loop, go behind it, and just bring the yarn through and pull it, and that makes your slip knot. So I'm going to make sure the beginners can follow this. So I'm going to do 36 chain plus 2 extra, and to do that you yarn over and pull through. Now we don't want our chain to be tight, so make sure you pull up a little way, yarn over and pull through, pull up just a little way, yarn over and pull through. So that's how we're going to do the chain. As I say, we don't want it tight, we don't want it to kind of pucker at the end. So I'm going to pause the video while I do my 38. So that's 36 plus 2. The reason I'm going to pause it is because it's very annoying when someone else is counting and you're trying to count. So in case you're following along and you're counting, I'm just going to catch up with you once I've done my 38 chain. Okay, here we are. I've got my 38 chains, so that's 36 for the pattern and 2 extra. Now we're going to count back. This one on the hook doesn't count this loop. We're going to count back to 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one here is the one we're going to work in, the 5th one from the hook. We're going to yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over, and pull up the loop. So we have 3. Just pull that down and you'll see 3 on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. In the UK that's called a treble crochet. In the US it's a double, and that is mostly what our blanket will be made of. We're going to chain 1 and do another one in exactly the same space. So yarn over, back in, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So now we're going to skip 2. So you count. I'm going to hold this with my fingers so you can see. We're going to skip 1, 2, and we're going to work into this one. And we're just going to do 1 in there. That creates a post between our stitches. So the 2 turning chain are our first post. Then we have our V, which is 2 in the same with a chain in the middle. And now we have a post. So we're just going to repeat that all the way along. We're going to skip 2. So we're skipping 1. If I can see what I'm doing, that is. If you ever get confused, just pull it up and you'll see the one you're in. 1, 2, go into the next one and make a V stitch. So we're going to skip 1, 2, in the next one. We're going to do a UK treble, US double, 1 chain, and then another one in the same place. If I get ahead of you, just pause it. So this is how it's going to look all the way along. We've got our post at the end, our V, our post and our V, and we're going to do that all the way along. So I'm going to pause the video, and what you need to do is to skip 2, make a post, skip 2, make a V, skip 2, make a post, and so on, and you should end up with a single post at the end. So I'll catch up with you when we get to the end. Okay, so I've gone all the way along, and it does look like the gaps are quite big, but they do close up, so just bear with it. So now I've done my last V, and I've got 3 remaining, so in the last one I just need to do our last post, and we're going to turn our work and chain our 2, and then in this first V I'm going to do a total of 5 UK treble crochets or US doubles, just the same as we were all the way along here, doing exactly the same stitch. So it's 5 in that one first V stitch. Okay, this is my last one. So that is now our shell, 5 stitches in that one V. Now in our post we're going to just do another post, so 1 single UK treble or US double on its own. So if you see a V, you're putting in a shell. If you see a post, you're putting in a post. So now we're back to the next V. We're going to do 5 in that one stitch. It's a very easy blanket. The stitch is not complicated at all. It only has a 2-row repeat, and they're very simple stitches. So you just need to pull out some yarn. And now we're back to our post. So we're going to do a post in that same stitch. And next it's the V. So we're going to do 5, make our shell in that V. And it's not a very wide swatch, so I'll stay with you until I get to the end. Of course, you'll be making your blanket or your wrap, so the rows will be longer for you. But by all means, just pause it and catch up. So now I've done my post. In my post, I'm doing my shell in my V. My 5th one, and I'm going to do one in the post. Now I do need to pull out some more yarn, just bear with me a second. Okay, back to our V. And after a few rows you start to see the pattern forming. And now our last one in there. I love this yarn, it's got some really pretty colours. It's now becoming a bit peachy. Do our post. Now we're in our last V, and then we've got our final post at the end. So we do our 5. And we're going to do 1 in our very last stitch. There, it's the top of our 2 chain. There's the bottom and there's the top. So now we turn our work and we're going to go back to doing our V's. So we do our 2 chain, which I post at the end, just to keep our edges nice and straight. And we're going to go into the center one. So we count 1, 2, 3. And this is our center stitch, and we're going to make our V in our shell. And then we're just going to go into the post and make a post into the center, which is nice and easy to see, but if you find it hard, you can always count them: 1, 2, 3, but they usually stick out as the center one. And we're going to do a V. So where we have a shell, we make a V. Where we have a post, we make a post. And now we're going to do another V-stitch. It's nice and simple, but nice and effective at the same time. We'll just do another all the way to the end, and I will turn and show you how it's looking. Remember, if I go too fast for you, just to pause it while you catch up. You can pause it at the end of my row and catch up if you want to. If you're not already flying along with it. It's one of these really easy patterns where you can watch TV and do it, and you just take your eyes off the TV for a moment and you're in the right place. So now we've got to the end, we're going to go into our top chain and do our post, and we're going to turn our work. So this is now the right way, and you can see these stitches here are the right way round, and these are the backs. So this is the way round that I like to have it. I know it's fairly pale yarn on a fairly pale background, but I think you can see it's really effective. So we do our 2 chain, without making the hook fall out, we do 2 chain, and we're going to do our shell into our V's, just as we did on the row before. As I said, it's just a 2 row repeat. Hang on, more yarn. I must be not pulling out enough. Okay, so where was we? I've done 3. And now I'm making a post. And we're going to do that all the way to the end of the row, just as we did before. Nice and simple. But it's looking nice. So I'm going to pause it then, and I'll catch up with you when we get to the end, and I'll tell you how the rest of the details for the blanket. But I'll just get to the end of this row and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've got all the way to the end, and that is how we do this blanket. That is the 2 row repeat. So we're doing the row which is setting up for our shells, and then our shell row. So this particular blanket that I made was 57 rows, ending on a wrong side row. So obviously that is ending on the row with the V's, and that's because we started with that row. So we want to end that with the same kind of stitch, so that when we put our border, it makes sense, because otherwise I feel like it would fan out. If you finished on this row, it does have a tendency to fan out, but this row pulls it back into the right shape. So we finish on the same row that we began. So for me, that was 57 rows for this particular blanket. So what I'm going to do, in the description box, I'm going to put all of the materials I've used, and all of the details on how to do it, and all the measurements in the description box, so if you want to see them. So carry on with your blanket or your wrap. Obviously, if you're doing a wrap, you may not want to do the same border, but it's completely up to you. But I'm going to carry on now, and with my swatch, until I've got it the right length, and I'll come back to you and show you how I did the border. Okay, so here's my very last row. I'm just going to finish my last stitch and then end off with this colour. Now, of course, you can change colour if you want, but I find it cleaner to start a new colour, get a cleaner edge. So I'm just going to end off with that and move this one out of the way. Just need to wind some up, and then we can move this yarn out of the way. Of course, you can use any yarn that you want. If you wanted to use a 4-weight yarn, you could, as long as you make sure you use the corresponding crochet hook, then that's fine. I just need to find the end. Where's the end gone? How strange. Oh, there it is. Just blended in. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my white. I had a bit of an accident with this yarn yesterday. Well, it wasn't me, it was my partner Gary. He dropped the ball of yarn. I'd finished with it on my blanket and he dropped it in toast. So that was good, wasn't it? So now we have to be careful of one thing, that when we're putting in our stitches for our rows on these two edges, this one here, that we do the same amount of stitches. So as you can see, we have a post, we skip 2, then this is just 1 stitch. So then we skip 2, 1 stitch, skip 2, 1 stitch. We make sure that we go into each and every one of them, but when we get to the V, we're just going in the 1 stitch. And then when we come to this side, we need to do exactly the same. Just go into those stitches, 1 in the V. So we've got an identical number of stitches on that row. So I'm going to start it actually at this edge, because otherwise I'll have 2 ends to sew in. Maybe I'll start on this edge so that you can see me go on to this row. So I'm just going to join it in the very corner. So there's our 2 chains. I'm going into the top one and I'm going to pull in my white yarn. Now I always I try and always make it so that it's less visible. So sometimes if I'm doing a taller stitch, I will, my very first chain, go through both my tail and my top yarn. But I don't really want to do that with this because it's a smaller stitch I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to make a, tie it in like that. So now I'm going to put my hook in and bring it through my loop. And I'm going to do 1 chain and cinch it down. So I'm going to be doing a UK double crochet, which in the US is a single. So in this corner, where we normally have 3 to turn the corner, I'm going to do 2. So just insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And I'm going to do that again in the same space. We normally have 3 in the corner, but I'm going to just do 2 because I'm making half a corner. So I've got my 2 loops and I'm pulling through. So now we want to make sure that we keep our stitches the right stitch count, which is obviously a bit difficult because we've skipped 2 down here. So I find the best way to do that is to just go in every stitch you see. So we're going in the post. It's hard to get in that first post. And then we're going in between because there was a chain there. And we're going in our post. And that makes up for the fact that we skipped 2. We've got 1 there and we've skipped 2. So I'm going to go into this one. And I'm going to go into this one. And then into the post, which is hard, but never mind, we get through it. Into the middle, and I'm working over this tail. And then we're going to go into this one. All the way along. Into every stitch you see, and into the middle of our V. And that will keep our count the same. So I'm just going to do that all the way along and I'll show you what I do when I get to the corner. Okay, so we're here at the corner and we do have a tail. So if I just hold that down, then you won't get confused with that. So I'm going to go into this corner stitch and do 3 of those UK double crochets or US singles. So I've done 1. I'm going to do another and then a third one in the same space, which turns the corner for us, and that just keeps it neat along there. Now we're coming along this edge, and what we need to do is just pick up, make sure that we don't go too far along so it pulls, but we need to pick up stitches. so nice and evenly. So I just go in between this stitch and pull up and make my stitch. Then the next one would be here. Just kind of judge it. You're just picking up stitches along the edge, and you can usually see roughly where they need to be. That tail's getting in the way a little bit, isn't it? There we go. I hold it behind. So there you can see we should put one here. So just make sure you're not going, as I say, too far ahead or too close so that there would be too many stitches. Just judge it. And we do that all the way along until we get to the next corner. And I'm still working over that tail, trying not to get it in the way so that it annoys you all. But there you go, we've gone around the corner. I'm going to carry on picking up stitches until I get to this corner. So I'm going to pause it now and catch up with you when I get there. Okay, so I'm back at the corner again, just putting up more yarn. And all I'm going to do again is go into this one here and do 3 for the corner. And we're back to go along that edge. And we're just, as long as we keep our work nice and flat and even, so that we don't have too many stitches along there and we're not pulling it tight, then that's fine. So in this one, we're doing the opposite way round, where we've got our 2, and then in our V, we just have 1. And then we have our 2 chain, which are upside down to us, this way around. And then we've got 1 in between there, and then we're in here. So we just carry on picking them up so that they're not too puckered and there's not too many stitches, and we're keeping it nice and flat and even and in line with this side. And we're going to go all the way along to this corner. We're going to do 3 in that corner, and then we're going to pick up our stitches the same way we did along here, all the way to here. And once we get almost to the end of this row, I will come back to you. So I'm going to pause it now and I'll come back to you and show you how we make this seamless corner. And so I'm just going to pause the video. I'll catch up with you when we get back to the start. Okay, so we're all the way back to the start, gone all the way along, and we're going to go into this stitch here where we've got our 2 stitches, which is half of the corner. I'm going to do the other half, complete that. So this is my 3rd, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the middle one, like the first one I did. I'm going to just slip stitch into there, and that takes me right to the middle of the corner. So that's how we do a seamless corner. We do 1 chain, cinch it down, and we're going to do 2 into this stitch again. So we're going to go straight into the stitch we've just slip stitched into, easy for me to say, and we're going to do 2 in that stitch. I think I've split my yarn. Let's do that again. Don't like it when that happens. Here we are, there's 1 and there's 2. Okay, so this was our half a corner, and when we come back round again, we'll finish that half off. So now we're just going to go in each and every stitch that we've picked up all the way around, 3 in our corner, in our center one all the way along each edge, 3 in this corner, 3 in this corner, come back around and finish off that corner. And we're going to do this on my blanket border because it's a much bigger blanket, obviously. I did 5 white rows of the UK double crochet, which is a single in the US. So I did my border as 5 rows, or rounds, as we are doing rounds now, to be honest with you, not rows. So I'm just going to go in 1 in every single stitch around. I'll carry on doing my border, and I'll come back and show you how to do the last row. If you get confused when you get back to here, then just watch this corner again, but it's very straightforward. When we get back round, we'll do our last stitch, we'll finish our third in that corner and slip stitch into the center of it, and that's where we'll go up from. So we'll continue our border in the corner, but making half a corner and then finishing it off when we get back. I hope that makes sense. If not, just watch this row again. Okay, so I'm back again at the corner. I've done my last stitch. I'm going to go into that very first one, complete my corner with my third, and into that next stitch I'm going to do the slip stitch, which brings me right into the middle of the corner. Now I would carry on for another 3 rows with my border to get this nice wide border on my blanket. I think as well, as I said before, a lacy blanket looks nice with a tight kind of stitch, but I'm going to call that it for this particular border because it's only a swatch, and there just would be 3 rows repeated exactly the same way. So now I've got my border around, if you can imagine it's a bit wider, and I'm going to show you my very last stitch. So I'm just going to clear this yarn away and come straight back. Okay, so I'm going to show you my last stitch of this blanket. This whole next row is done with a UK half treble, which is a half double in the US. So what you want to do is you want to go into the very corner stitch. I'm going to join the yarn here because there's no tail, and I'm going to pull my yarn through, and it's a bigger stitch, so I'm going to use both ends to make my first chain, which I'm going to cinch down, and then I'm going to drop that tail, and I'm going to do my first and second stitch in this one stitch here. So that is to yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. I know there were 4, but that's because I had my tail. I'll show you again. Yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You've got 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that is a half treble. So it's slightly bigger stitch than we're doing now, but not as tall as a UK treble or US double. So now we're just going to go in each stitch around using the same yarn that we made our blanket with and go all the way around. So I always think this looks really nice when you've got a variegated yarn that changes colour. Most of the ones I've used before now have changed colour quicker, but even though this one is a slower change, I still really like the way it looks against the white. So that's kind of how it looks. And if you look on the wider border of the actual blanket, this is how it looks. I think it really looks quite effective. I did toy with the idea of doing another row of these just around the edge, which you can do if you want, just to pick up the white and do another row of UK double crochet or US single. I've done that before. It looks quite nice because you just get this little stripe of colour in your border, but I didn't do that this time. I just thought it looked quite nice with this one row of the colour, because I do like these colours. I think the way that they change as well, from kind of pinks and peaches to mauvey blues, and I just like the way it looks. So I decided to leave it, because if you do that last row, it does make this border a little bit thinner, so you don't see quite as much of the colour. It takes that row away, that top part. So you just carry on all the way around. Put out a bit more yarn, going in each and every stitch of your border, and then when you get to the corner, just as you did with the row below, you do 3 of these in the center corner and carry on all the way around. We'll show you the first corner and then I'll pause it until the end. Because it's a small swatch, the colour might not change quite so quickly, and there might not be so many different colours in this border. But it depends on what yarn you've used. One time I made a really colourful rainbow blanket, and I edged it in a rainbow colour change yarn. That looked really cool. You know, the ones like you can get from Poundland, and I think Peyton's do one, Peyton's Fab DK. So here we are, we're at the corner. Now sometimes it's difficult to see which is the centre one. I think it's the next one. So we're going to do 3 in there. And we're just going to go all the way around. 1 in each, 3 in the corner. I'll work over that tail, which is why at the end I had just 1 tail to work over, which was amazing. I haven't done it yet. I need to sew that tail in. I'll do that at the end. So that's cool, isn't it? Just all the way around, 1 tail. Can't be bad. So I'm going to pause it then, as I said, and I'll catch up with you when I get back to the start. Okay, so I'm almost back. Got 1 stitch there to do. And then to finish off my 3rd one of my corner, slip stitch into the centre of it, which is there, because that's my chain. And finish off. Cut a nice long tail for sewing in. And perfectly, just the 1 tail to sew. So there we have it. That's how to do the border. Like I said, if you wanted to, if it was a thin border like this, then that white one might look nice. But I feel like, because it's a wide border, that white one would take away. It'd just be like a thin stripe of colour. But that's how I did it anyway. So I hope you like that. This is the right side, obviously. So thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care. There is a left-handed and a right-handed version. Should you find yourself in the wrong one, then there will be a link at the front of the video. It comes up like a little line, and it tells you which one you can just click that to go to the other one. Likewise, there'll be some at the end of the video, like a little link to the next one. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that, and you can easily adapt this pattern to any size blanket or wrap, whatever you want. So cool, thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye for now. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. This is Tracy, and this is a tutorial for a blanket that I did way back when I first started my channel. And when I checked out the tutorial, I went on far too much, so I've decided to do it again. And this I called the Baby Bubbles blanket. And I did it with different yarn last time, but this time I've done it in a DK weight, which is King Cole Beaches, and I edged it with Peter Pan DK. It's for a gift, so I wanted it to be super soft. So all of the details of these yarns I've used and where you can get them are in the description box. And I've done a couple of swatches to show you. I don't really want to waffle on too much, because that was the problem with the previous tutorial. Now this blanket is a fair size. It's quite a large pram blanket. I'll put all the details and dimensions in the description box, but I wanted to show you a couple of swatches that I did by changing the yarn. Now this is what it looks like with a chunky bulky 5. And if you change colour, then this is the effect you get. So you either have this darker pink peeping through, or you can have it this way round and have the lighter pink kind of peeping through. But the bubbles or bobbles, whatever you want to, puffs, you want to call them, come more to the front on the right way round. I also made it into a cowl, and for this one I used a 4 weight. So I wanted to show you what it looks like with all the different yarns, and I'll put the details, as I said, in the description box below. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. While you're doing that, I'll just clear this away and we'll get started. Okay, for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to use any 4 weight, so that's an Aran yarn. And the reason I'm doing that is because it might make it easier for you to see the stitches and what I'm doing with a larger grade of yarn. So I'm using like I said, a 4 weight, and I'm also using a 5.5 crochet hook. Okay, so you'll need to make your slip knot however you normally would. And this blanket or cowl, however you want to make it, is done in a multiple of 3. We don't really need a plus number unless you want it a certain width. It's plus another 3. So just crochet in groups of 3 until you've got to the desired length or width that you want. I'm going to pause it while I do my little kind of swatch, because if I start counting it might put you off. So I'm just going to pause it for a second and I'll come back to you when I've done my chain. Okay, for the purposes of this swatch, I did 18 just to show you how to do this stitch, but you just need to just do it in multiples of 3, so that's fine. So to start off, we're going to do UK treble, which is a double crochet in the US. I always say both terms just to make sure everyone knows what we're doing. And we count back 1, 2, 3, and in the 3rd chain, we're going to do a UK treble or a double crochet in the US. Nice and simple. So then we're going to skip 2 chain. So we're going to skip 1, 2, and in this one, we're going to do a UK double, which is a single crochet in the US, and then 2 trebles UK or doubles US in the same space. Don't worry if it gets a little baggy, that's fine. So what we've done is we've got the 2 chain at the end will be our first stitch. Then we've got the one in the same stitch, so that's 2 at the beginning. And then we've got a short stitch followed by the 2 big ones. So we're going to skip 2 and we're going to repeat that. So we're just going to insert and do our UK double US single, then 2 UK trebles or US doubles. And that is as simple as it gets. So skip, skip, and go in the next and repeat that. I chose a different colour hook so that you should be able to see it nice and easily. So we've got skip, skip again. A cluster of 3. Okay, so you're left with the last 3. So in this last chain, we're going to do, sorry, I nearly did it wrong. In this last chain, we're just going to do a UK double or US single. I'm so used to doing the same at one end as I do the other, and it's not that way in this one. So when we turn over, you can see we've got these raised kind of bumps. So that's making our bubbles or bobbles, whatever you want to call them. So we're going to chain 2. And in the same place that our chain comes out of, we're just going to do our second stitch, which is another UK treble or US double crochet. So now we're going to skip right over this and find that double crochet, which is a single in the US, remember. So we're skipping over those 2 there, and we're getting to this one, and we're just going to start our cluster all over again in that stitch. Exactly the same cluster as before. Okay, and then we're going to just skip over these 2. We're going to find that little double crochet, little single crochet, and we're going to do our cluster in that stitch. Again, going to skip over this one. It's very simple, very good, simple 1 row repeat really. First row being different because it was into chain, but it's exactly the same principle. Okay, so when we get to our last one, it's not the last one, is it? Skipping over. Well, it kind of is, but we need to do 1 more cluster before the end. Need to pull out some yarn, just bear with me a sec. Okay, so now we've reached the end. This is our stitch and these are our turn-in chains. So we're going to find the top one, which is right next to the stitch, and we're going to go in there and finish off with our UK double or US single crochet. Then we're going to turn, and we're making the raised bubbles on this side. Just need to pull out some more yarn. So I only did a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to repeat that again. So I'll do another row with you. We're going to chain 2, and in the same space we're going to do another stitch, a UK treble or US double. We're going to skip over these 2, and in this one here we're going to start our cluster. If you can hear beeping, it's my washing machine. It plays a little song. Skip over these. If I go ahead of you, then just by all means pause me, skip over. As you can see, it becomes very, oops a daisy, apart from pulling your stitches out, it becomes very easy to sit while you're watching TV or doing something, because once you've got this little kind of sequence under your belt, it's all there is until you've finished. Okay, so we're going to, there's our stitch, there's our chain. Okay, and turn our work. So as you can see, it's starting to take shape. Now the only difference, as I said, if you want to, is you can change colour every row, and it will give you this effect. So if you wanted to, you could do a variegated one there in a solid colour, like a complete contrast, or just solid colours like I have. But that's the effect you get if you change colour every single row. Otherwise, we just carry on. So the border that I did for my blanket, I will show you that. We'll just do one more row, and then I will show you how I did the border. Just pull more yarn. I didn't pull much. I want to show you another row because it's after a few rows you really see it start to take more shape when you've got the reverse side coming through more. Nearly there. Whoops. A little more. And our last chain. Okay, so now you can see the effect. It kind of, you've got this contouring, as I like to call it, coming through, and it's exactly the same on both sides. The only way you know which way is the right way is your first row has the look of the front stitches, if that's what you want at the front. Okay, so I'm going to pause it for a second. I'm going to bring my blanket back in, and I'm going to show you how I did the border. Okay, so the border, I just picked up stitches all the way around. So I ended off my colour and I picked up a corner, and I did rows of UK double crochets or US single crochets, and I think I did 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did 6 rows to get this nice kind of wide, it's not massively wide, but it's a nice wide little border for the blanket. Now what I was going to do then was rejoin the colour, because this was a variegated yarn, so as you can see it changes colour as we go around. I picked up my colour and I did a whole round of this stitch all the way around. So if you, when you get to the end, if it doesn't quite work out, it doesn't matter too much. If you, instead of having 2 in between, you've got 1. I just made sure it fitted all the way around the outside. Then I was going to pick up the white and go around and just so that it kind of had a little white finish. But my partner Gary said he preferred it as it was, so I've left it. But that is all I did, was 6 rounds of UK doubles, which are US single crochet, and then 1 round of these kind of clusters, and that was it, finished. So I hope you like that, and I hope it's a lot better than the last time I did this tutorial. Details of the yarn, the hooks, everything down to the scissors that I use, and everything will be in the description box, as well as the dimensions for this blanket and how many chain I made. This was done obviously in a DK. I will show you. I used 3 balls of this, King Cole Beaches, and this was my 3rd ball. So I did have, well, perhaps half a ball left over, roughly. And I didn't use a whole ball of this either, probably half a ball. So this is a 50-gram ball, and the other one was 100 grams. So it's not massive yarn eater by any means. Okay, thank you for watching, and look out for all that information plus other details in the description box below. Thank you, bye for now. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Crochet Rocks. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this rainbow blanket. It's a baby blanket that I'm making for someone who's just about ready to have the baby. So it's kind of stopped me making my bag tutorial for you at the moment, but I'll get onto that as soon as. But I'm going to show you how to do this. A lot of people have expressed a wish that I do the tutorial. So I'm not quite finished with this blanket yet, but by the end of the tutorial I will be. So I'm using some rainbow yarn that I got quite some time ago from Aldi. They did a pack. There's a blue one somewhere under here. There it is. It's a very pale blue. But yeah, I'm using these rainbow shades that I got in the pack from Aldi. And I'm using some Robin White baby yarn, which that's not the baby yarn, but this one, because I've already started on it. This is that's called Bonnie Baby DK, and I've got 3 of these. I always use 3 on a blanket, just to make sure I've got enough. And I did think that I might edge it with this because it's already got all those colours in it, and I bought this recently as well. This is the Robin paint box, and I just thought it would edge it quite nicely because all of the colours that I'm doing in this blanket are here. So just bear with me 1 second while I get this lot out of the way, and I'll show you how we do this blanket. Okay, so the weight of yarn that I'm using for this is DK because that's what I predominantly had the most of, and that's what the rainbow pack from Aldi was. DK is readily available over here in the UK. If you want to get a good 4 weight, a good Aran, you really got to buy it online if you want good colours. So I'm going to make this in DK. I'm going to sort of explain this as if you're a beginner, but it is quite an intricate pattern, so I will take the time to explain. You're going to need a darning needle. That's an essential because this changes colour every row, so there are a lot of ends unfortunately to tie in, or sew in should I say, and a pair of scissors. So I'm going to show you how to make a start, and I've got it written down in my little book just in case I forget how many chain to tell you. So I'm just going to look that up because my memory is like a sieve, and I've just got to find the page. I think I would have found that before, wouldn't you? Where is it? Bear with me. Here we are. Yeah, I've called it the Rainbow Rocks blanket, or baby blanket, and it takes a foundation chain of 98. So if you wanted to make this larger or smaller or into a scarf or anything else, I've found that this is multiples of 4 plus 6. So that's how you judge your size. But if you're making this in 4 weight, or an Aran yarn in the UK, then obviously it will come up bigger anyway. But it is quite a nice size blanket, it's not small. I also thought what might be nice, I'm just going to pop that there so that I can refer to it. What might be nice when you're making this, and get it back over, is if the colours were sort of ombre. So you kind of count really how many rows you would need, perhaps in I'd say a dark yellow, maybe 5, and then you kind of change it to one that's lighter, change it to one that's lighter. I thought that might look really, really effective as well. So that was just one thought I had. And plus, when I'm making it, I do a V stitch at one point and a solid granny stitch at the next round. You could just make completely V stitch on your coloured rows. That would make it slightly different as well. So I'm just going to pull out some yarn and get started on my 98 chain, which does sound like a lot, doesn't it? So I'm going to make a slip knot, which you can do in any way you wish, and just yarn over and pull through for a chain. And we want 98, so it's yarn over and pull through. That makes a chain. So I've got 5 now, so I'm going to pause this while I get my 98 chain. You don't want them tight, but equally you don't want them like loose either, because you need to get your stitches into them. So I'm going to pause the video while we make our 98 chain. Okay, so I have 98 chain, and what I'm going to do, the first row, my foundation row, is going to be what we call in the UK a double crochet. So for those in the US, that is a single crochet. So we're going into the second chain from the hook. This loop doesn't count. There's our first, and this one here is our second. So we're just going to insert our hook into that chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we have 2 on our hook, yarn over and pull through both. Now that we're going to do all the way along. So we're going to go into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both. And that's as simple as that all the way to the end. So it's just a very simple stitch, and that is what the UK term is a double crochet, but in the US that's a single crochet. So I want you to carry on and do that in every stitch, every chain until the end. So you just insert your hook, yarn over, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through them both. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you at the end of this row when you've got all of your stitches. Okay, so I'm almost right at the end. I've just got 2 more to do, so I'm just going to go in there and complete my last 2. So this one here is the knot, we don't go into there, so we're just going to go in the last one. So now we've got our row of our double crochets or single crochet. So now at the end of this row we're going to chain 2, and that gets me up to the height of a UK treble crochet, which in the US is your double crochet. Now some tutorials will tell you to do 3 chain, but I always find that is too much and I get like a little bulge. This will bow out at the sides, and we don't really need that. So this is going to count as our first stitch here. So we're not going to go into this stitch because this is our first, and we're going to go into this one here and we're going to do a treble crochet, and that's the UK treble or the US double. So we're yarning over and we're going to go into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So now that counts as our first 2 treble crochet, and we're going to chain 1. Now we're going to skip 3, so we're going to count them. It's hard to do that. 1, 2, 3. We're going to go into this 4th one and we're going to yarn over and go into that stitch and do our same stitch as before, the treble crochet UK or double in the US. And we're going to do 3 in that one stitch, which is the standard granny stitch, really. So we're going to do 3 in there, chain 1. Now we're going to skip 3, go into the next stitch and do another 3. And we're going to repeat that all the way along until we've just got a couple of stitches remaining. So we're going to do our 3, 1 chain before it, 1 chain after it. Skip 3, go into the 4th one. And that's our repeat. We're just going to carry on and repeat that all the way to the end. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you once you have your row of these grannies. And you will have a couple of stitches, 2 or 3 stitches remaining at the end, and I'll show you what to do when we get there. Okay, so I'm on my last set of 3. Do my chain as usual. So now we've got these stitches remaining, and as we started with our 2, just our 2, like they were our beginning chain, and this was, sorry, I'm zoomed, I'll unzoom. Because we started with 2, where we've got our beginning chain and our first, we now need 2 at this end. So in our second to last stitch, we're just going to do 1 UK treble, and in our last stitch, we're going to do another. And we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, I'm just going to get a drink, won't be a moment. That's better. So now we're going to take our first colour. I might be zoomed in a bit more there, hang on, that's it. Take our first colour and find the end, usually poking through the end. And I'm going to show you how we get onto our next row. Now this looks a little tricky, but it's really not. So for our first part of this row, we're going to carry on in white, and we're going to do 1 UK double crochet, remember that's a single in the US, in the first stitch, and 1 in this second, but we're not going to finish it. We're going to hold on to that yarn at the back, and we're going to change colour. And we're going to change colour by and I'm going to leave a nice long tail, because this, as I say, is a bit of a nightmare when it comes to ends and tails. So I'm going to just tie that off at the back. Just get my yarn and just tie it into like a little, not pulling it tight because it distorts the stitches, but I'm just going to tie it because that will give it a little bit more security before I sew those ends in. And then I'm going to get rid of this white yarn, leave a nice long tail, just cut it off and discard that. Okay, so now we're going to carry on in. Now I recommend as well that after a couple of rows you sew your ends in, because honestly there's rather a lot, because you change colour at the end of every row and you can't really carry the yarn with you, so you do need to sew them in, and you don't want them all at the end because it's a bit of a nightmare. So really do it as you go. So now we're going to do 1 chain, and we're going to work over these stitches and into the space between. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into this 1 stitch in between here. We're going to yarn over, go over these stitches, insert into there, yarn over and pull up. So we're doing our normal just UK treble or US double, but going over that stitch. It's perfectly okay, don't worry about that. We're going to do 1 chain and we're going to do another one in there. So we've made a V stitch. 1 more chain. You can see you've got a V stitch over the top of that where you've got the chain space. So now we're going to just leapfrog over to this one, and in the centre we've got our 3 that we skipped, 1, 2, 3. We're going to go into the centre one. So we're just going to yarn over, go into that centre one, going over that. I can go into 2 loops. Hang on, move that out the way, it's confusing. So we're going into 2 loops, yarn over and pull up our loop. So we've got 3 on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, 1 chain, and go back in there and do another. I might have split that stitch a little bit, don't worry about that. 1 chain. So just like before, we've got a chain before and a chain after, and in the next row we're going to be working over this. So we're kind of going, I'm going to do that again and not split the yarn because that doesn't look nice. Not that you would notice it really, but I am noticing it. So that's it. Just going to do that V again. Just sing amongst yourselves while I do that. Put that right. Perfectionist. So there we are. We're working over the top of that previous row, going over here and in that space between. So again, here's our 3 stitches that we skipped, and we're going into this center one. So there's 1, 2, 3, yarn over. Try not to make it too baggy so that when you pull up, you've just got your 3 stitches. You can do that by pulling on this, so it's a normal size. So we're going to do our 1 stitch, our 1 chain, and back in there for the 2nd stitch. So we're making V's in between, and we're doing another chain, and we're going to do our V in between these, and we're just going to carry on doing that all the way to the end in between these, well, I don't call them shells, clusters I'll call them, because technically a shell is larger, but you're just going in between them, and that's what it looks like on the other side. And I'm going to pause the video then. Don't forget to do a chain before and after the V-stitch. Do 1 more V for you. Pull it so it's got the right tension. 1 chain, back in the same stitch, and do the 2nd one, and 1 chain. So we're creating this part here where we've got to go over in the next round. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you when I get to the end, and I'll show you what we do at the end of this row. Okay, so I've gone all the way along, and now I'm in my last hole, if you like, before I get to the end. So I've done half of my V, my 1 chain, and my 2nd half, and I don't complete it, I just go through 2, so I've left 2 loops on my hook. So this is so that we can change back to the white yarn. So I'm going to leave a nice generous tail for the sewing in. Just let me get this yellow out of the way because I don't want it to start tangling. It's got to wind a little bit back on. A bit more than I thought, must have pulled out quite a bit. So then we grab the white again, and we're going to change, and this is why there's so many ends, but it's pretty. So and you can't, as I say, carry it because you start at opposite ends. So leaving a nice long tail and holding on to this one so that it doesn't become baggy or loose, we finish that stitch with the white. See that? So we've just finished that. Turn it over and we tie these off. That just gives us more security for the ends once we sew them in as well. So now we're going to finish this in our white. So this gives us the white border all the way around. So I'm going to do 1 chain because I've not done my chain after this V, and in my last 2 stitches in my last 2 stitches I'm going to do, did I show you that? We're going to do our double crochet. So we yarn over and we just do our UK double, which obviously is a single crochet in the US. Now I like to go into that first chain, it doesn't make any difference. So we're going to do 2 chain because now we're on our white row. We're doing we're going to be doing those again, so those treble crochets. So we're going into this stitch here, so we've got our 2 treble crochets at the start. So basically on the yellow rows, our whites are our double crochet, which is a single in the US. On our white rows we're going into these and we're doing our treble, so that's what's keeping our height, because this is, if you like, halfway through the 2 rows. This is 1 row, this is our 2nd row of whites, but this is halfway because we've gone down back to it and it's slightly above. So now we are just going to do our one chain before, and remember, one chain before our little cluster, one after, and then we're going to go into the third of our row here, and we're going to work over this yellow, and we're going to just go into that stitch so it's hiding that little piece in the middle, and we're going to do our 3 just like we did before on our white row. We're going to do our 3 treble crochets. So we've gone over that, and so all you'll see are these V stitches between. So we do our one chain, and we're going to do 3 in the center of our cluster below, working over that yellow. One chain, find the next one, find the center, and do our little cluster, just our standard granny stitch cluster. And so we're doing 3 and one chain, and basically that is every single white row will be the same. And we're going to find our center of our 3, and do our cluster into there, and one chain, and that's what it looks like. So we're just working over, every row works over the one below. So now we've got, this is where we did our chain, so we're going to go beneath it, straight over it, and do our 3. And we're going to do that all the way to the end. Oops, didn't go yarn over with our 3s. And we're going to make sure our tension is just right when we come to do the stitch. There we go, pull some yarn out. Let's move that over there so it's easier to see. It's only really on the first one, so if you pull up, look how far apart that is. So I just tend to like make it so that it's just by pulling on this, making our stitches look normal. Otherwise you end up with a big baggy gap. You know, try and keep our tension nice. So that's basically it. We're going to go all the way along doing this right to the end, and I'm going to pause the video as before and catch up with you when we get to the end of the row, and then I will show you what to do next. And that's when I will discover if I told you right or not, because I can't remember if I told you to do a UK double in the end or a treble. And if I told you the treble, I'm going to give myself a slap. So just basically doing a chain before and a chain after, and our clusters of 3 over the yellow and in the center of the row below. So I'm going to pause it now, and I will catch up with you at the end. Okay, so I'm on my last one. Just go into the center, do my last 3. My last chain. Now we're back here, and I did do it right, thank goodness for that. Sleep deprivation, that is, and wasn't sure what I'd done. So in our last 2 stitches we are just going to do our treble crochet, so it keeps our edge nice and straight. So we're just going to each, oops a daisy, that one always gets tighter. It doesn't really need to force my way in. There we are. So we're just going to do our 2 at the end, and that will keep our blanket with a nice little, already nice little border. So we're going to change back to the yellow. You don't have to. You can do one row of colour and just do the next row in a different colour. You can do the next row in a V, or you can do what I'm doing. So now we're on our colour row. We're going to do a one chain, and our first stitch is our UK double crochet or US single, and in our second one we start it but we don't finish it, and we cut off a nice long tail and move the white out of the way. Now I'm going to get my yellow back, Let's get some, oops, get the end, get some yarn out. Leave a nice long tail, as I said before. Now grab hold of this so it keeps these nice and tight, and finish that stitch in the yellow. Turn it over, and we need to tie them off. Now see what I mean about all these ends. This is why at this stage I would now just, hang on a minute, I would just, it's kind of trying to fall off the table, which is very annoying. Get my end, which is here, and my white, not that one because that's the previous tail. This is why I will get rid of them, because it becomes very confusing as to what you've got and what you haven't got. So those are the two correct ones, just tying them off. Now I would normally just pause now and sew these in, but I just want to show you. So I'm going to move all my tails out of the way, and I'm going to do my first chain because I've done my two. And now in with the pattern that I've done now, I did the next row, I didn't do V's, went straight into the center of my V, which is here, and did a treble crochet. So I'll show you, move these tails out of the way, it's very annoying. So just yarn over into the center of that V and pull up a loop and do a treble crochet. Remember, that's the UK term, and I'm going to do 3 of them. Now of course, if you wanted to, you could just do, let's pulled a tail through, let's get rid of them. You could just do another V, and then you do your chain. So you've got a chain before and a chain after. This is what it would look like if you just did another V, which does look pretty because it would just, you'd still go through there, but it would just be like a nice little loop all the way through. And I'm going to do something with that I like doing it that way a little bit later on. So now we're just going to carry on doing our, if you want to make it this way, doing our 3 through each of those big loops, and our chain before and our chain after, go into the center of this one all the way along. And my hook is squeaking because I'm hot. And that's what we're doing all the way along. We're just going to do 1 chain before, 1 chain after. And remember, because it's the coloured row, this is only a short stitch, and it writes itself. Don't worry about that step up, that's perfectly fine. It writes itself in the end. So we just carry on all the way along until we get to the end where we rejoin our white. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you once I've wiped this hook down and finished this row. Okay, so I've made it all the way along. Now for some reason this last one is always a little tighter. I don't know why. Something to do with the colour changing, I guess. So I'm going to carry on, and with my last yellow I'm only going to half complete because I'm going to change my yarn colour now. So with your ends, yours will probably look a little neater than mine because I've been showing you and I've got this cumbersome equipment in the way. It's not as tight as it would normally be, so your ends will probably look a little neater than mine. So I'm going to change the yarn, and I'm going to have that problem with too many ends and tails. I'm just going to cut my yellow off, grab my white. I've got to move this yellow ball out of the way because it will just get confusing. I can discard it now because I've finished with yellow for a while. And pull out some more yarn. Now just remember, you don't have to change yarn colours at all. You can carry on in like making this a 2-colour. You can use a variegated rainbow. You can do bright colours, pastel colours, ombre, anything you want. It doesn't have to be the same. So I'm just going to hold on to that at the back so it doesn't make these loops larger. Whoops, finish my stitch, turn it over and tie these 2 off. And if I weren't doing this as a tutorial now, I'd be sewing these ends in. And you have to be very thorough with them because of the clusters. You don't really have a great deal of space to sew them into for a corresponding colour, if you know what I mean. So I've been crocheting some of these in as I go, but I just didn't want to get confusing. I just wanted to show you So I'm going to do my chain. Now remember, on the coloured rows, our end of the row is a UK double, which is a US single end. So we go in that stitch, I go into this one, because it's only half a row, so it doesn't make a great deal of difference. So I'm going to do 2 chains and turn, and ignoring all of this spaghetti ends, this row is exactly the same as it was before. With the second stitch is our treble crochet or double US, 1 chain, and we're now going into the center, over the top of this and into the center of our white cluster. And so we're going up in a way half a row each time we do a row. It's only half, and that way it's a less holey blanket, and therefore a little warmer. So there we go. That's every white row is exactly the same, and we just need to get rid of those, and that's how it will look. So you'll carry on to the end and you'll change colour in exactly the same way, either to the same or a different colour, whatever colour you want. And that's the 2 rows that we just keep repeating. And all you have to remember is that on the coloured rows, our ending and our beginning are a double crochet in the UK or a single crochet in the US. And on the white rows, they are treble crochet in the UK or double crochets in the US. And we change our colours at the end of our rows by just going through the 2 loops. So we're just going to carry on all the way to the end as before and change our yarn. And I don't think you need to see me do any of that again, just to change to a different colour. And if you're in any way confused about any of these still, just go back and watch those rows again. So as I said to you before, I've done mine where I've done this V and then I've done the shell, if you like, or cluster. I kind of like that. But if you wanted to just do V's, that's perfectly fine. Or if you wanted to just do these clusters, equally just as fine. So just play with it, and you can make it pastel shades, you can do it the same as mine, or you can carry on making it in, you know, nice variegated rainbow yarn or different colour foundation, because obviously this is for a baby, so there's a lot of white in it. So I'm going to pause this now, and I'm going to catch up with you when we get to the finished blanket, and I'm going to show you what we do on our final row. Okay, so here we are. I've done my very last white row, so there's my last coloured row, and this is my last white row, and now we've got this part that we need to reconcile. So I'm just going to get out some yarn, and we're going to turn our work with 1 chain, and in these stitches here we're going to do our single crochet US or double in the UK in our first 2. Now I'm going to work in the center of this last cluster and going over this white, and I'm going to do a half treble, which is a half double in the US. A half treble is a UK term. So I'm going to go down into this row here, into the center of my stitch, and pull up a loop. So I've yarned over and I've gone in, pull up a loop, so I've got 3 on my hook, as if I'm doing a normal treble, but I'm going to do a half treble by yarn over and pull through all 3. So it just anchors that, and then in the next couple of stitches we're going to do, or 3 stitches should I say, of our cluster, we're going to just do our double crochet in the UK or single US. And now I'm not going to do any chain or anything else. I'm just going to yarn over, go into the center, pull up my loop. Now you might think I've got less stitches, less count, but it does work anyway, it's perfect. So we're going to do our 3 single crochets or double crochets UK. It's confusing when they're different names, isn't it? And all the way along, once we've done our 3, we yarn over, go into the center, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, go through all 3. And then you can see that that just finishes our blanket nicely. And the stitches are a perfect amount. There's no problem with it being less stitches or puckered in any way. So we're just going to anchor those by working over the white, going into the center. I didn't go through. Yes, I did. Just didn't seem like it. And it straightens it off nicely because it's just enough of a taller stitch to make that nice and straight. And we're going to do that all the way to the end, so that anchors that row nicely. So I'm going to pause the video, excuse me, and I'm going to do that all the way to the end, and I will meet up with you at the end of the row. Okay, so I'm almost back. I've just got to do my last half treble in there, and then my last 2 stitches, for some reason a little tight than normal, and into the end. So now you have a choice. You can either pick up all around the outside and do a row or 2 of double crochet in the UK or single US or half trebles, but I think that my blanket's quite large, so I'm going to end off my white. Don't bother about changing the colour, just going to end off my white, and I'm going to take my colour. I've got to get the white out of the way. Oh, went a bit too far, so just move this out of the way because I don't want to tangle my yarns up. And I'm going to use this really lovely DK Robin paint box, and I'm just going to see if I can see a colour on there for you. I think it's just a dye and a shade, and the shade is 233. It's part of a little yarn haul I picked up in a shop called Dunelm in the UK. I did a little yarn haul video, so you might have seen it. And I'm just going to pull some out, and I'm going to attach it. I'm going to attach it to this end because I don't like to have too many ends at the same place. So here's my corner, and I'm just going to insert my hook and pull it through. And my first stitch, I'm just going to do a chain using my tail and my working end, and I'm just going to work over this. And what I find really effective is to just do half trebles. Remember, that's half double in the US. I'm just going to pull that tight, and I'm going to work over this tail. So there's 1, and this is being the corner, there will be 3. Always do 3 in the corner, and then 1 in each stitch along. And I'm just going to work over the tail. Didn't really want to be worked over. I think it's because my blanket's quite large, it's sort of folding in on itself. So yeah, just go in one stitch in each along. I just think it kind of works out because of the rainbow colours. Quite like the effect. I did this once before. I made a very bright neon rainbow blanket, and I edged it in sort of bright neon colours in this way, and it was really, really effective. I didn't need to go around, just this one row was enough. I'm not going to go over that part because I'm going to use that bit to sew back on itself. So otherwise they do tend to pop out if you just go over them. So to go back on themselves is a little bit more security. So that's what I'm going to do all the way around, and that's going to be my border. If you wanted to, you could do like a little picot edge afterwards. I'll see what it looks like to see whether I want to do that. So you're just going to go in every single stitch along this edge, which is nice and easy because we've got a row of stitches to go by. But when we get around the length of the blanket, we're just going to have to judge the distance. and do them in the, you know, in where we can, because that's our edge, which was just our double crochet and our treble crochet along the outer edges. So we'll get to that, and we'll just have to muddle through with that and pick them up where we can. But I like that. I think that looks kind of cute. So I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to catch up with you at the corner and show you what to do along the other edge. Okay, so I'm at the end, so I'm just going to do 3 in the corner. I'm going to go over that tail that I created. Now I forgot to mention at the beginning, I showed you my yarn colours, and they were 50-gram balls, and I used one 50-gram ball of each, and there was some left over. So now we're going to go down this outer edge, and I'm just going to pick up where I can and make sure my spacing is right, and go over that tail at the same time. So I've got 3 in the corner, and I'm just going to go in and pick them up, try and keep them the same depth, if you know what I mean, so that they're not going into anything like a hole that's deeper, and just go along that edge. So that's what it looks like, and that's how my border will look, because I'm going to do 3 in each corner, and then when I get back to the start, I'm just going to slip stitch into this first one and bury my tail. So it's as simple as that. Now I like this border as it is, but if you wanted to, you could just pick up the white and do a double crochet, which is a UK term, so it's a single in the US all the way around, or you could do a little crab stitch. If I do a crab stitch, which is a backwards, you're working backwards with a double crochet UK or single US, and you do kind of back on yourself so it makes a loop, I always do a row of double crochet or single US first, the right way, because otherwise it tends to look a little bitty. So you can either do that crab stitch, or you can make a little picot. Now I know it's not the right place, but I will show you how to do a picot. This is how I do it. You do 3 chain, and you go into the bottom chain, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you've got 2, yarn over, pull through both of them, and just secure it with a slip stitch. And that's how I make a picot. So afterwards you just go all the way around, don't worry about the corners, you just go in every other stitch. So you do your picot there, and you do your little picot, and then you would secure it into the next one, so you kind of miss one each time. So if you wanted to go round with a row of picots, you could, but I'm just going to keep this as a row of half trebles, because I think I like it that way. I may change my mind when I get to the end, but that's basically the blanket. So I'm going to finish this video here, because you don't really need to see me go all the way around and do a slip stitch in the end, because everybody knows how to do that, don't they? And you've seen the corners. You just do 3 in the corners, and you pick it up as you go around, keeping it nice and even in each stitch. And I'm working over my tail, but you see what I mean before. This is with all of my tails weaved in, and I've tried to get them in this corner, and if you go over too much, it becomes quite chunky and fat. So that's why I try and leave a nice long tail, so I can go through and take it through to another one as well. Otherwise it just makes this last one a little too bulky. But that's it. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there are new videos. I hope you like this one. If you do, please give it a like and a share, and maybe a comment. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.